Hey, yo, what's up? It's your boy Odyssey. I'm back here with another video. Okay, there's two things. First of all, I've been gone for like 1 to 2 weeks, First reason is I got banned on YouTube. Nigga, what? For I don't know the Reddit trying not to laugh video I wrote like months ago. Apparently, it supports criminal gang affiliated culture. That's what the message. That's what the email me about, anyways. But I forgive you, YouTube. I forgive you. I forgive you. But anyways, the other week I had to take a personal week, man. Right now, my brain, a lot of shit going on. Let's just get into the video. You ain't gotta know about that, But shout out the One Piece trio, Sanji, Luffy as well, shout out them back. One Piece, the dub is going slow, but I've already watched the sub so far. There's no point in watching the dub again, anyways. Right now, I'm reacting to the infographic show, banging show. What's a YouTube channel? A banging show. It gives you good updates on messed up shit that's happening in the world. Speaking of messed up shit, worst war crime committed by the United States government during World War II. Oh, yeah, that's correct. America's a fucked up place, man. I like some of the people that come from America. I have a lot of friends in America. There's a lot of good YouTubers, a lot of good people from America. Then there's a lot of Karens and Kevins and dickheads and assholes, but like, we move past that, benefit of the doubt. There's all the fun that they make fun of Canada. Canada's better than America, but they still make fun of us, You gotta accept it. And for my American fans, I'm just capping,
When one thinks of atrocities committed during the Second World War, the two most obvious culprits that immediately come to mind are Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. However, the Allied powers, including the United States, were just as culpable in violating international laws that they held their defeated foes in account to after the war. Though the Allies did not commit the atrocities on nearly the scale that the Axis powers did, they nonetheless committed actions that, if committed during any other conflict, would have severely...
Let's see. The Axis powers during the World War II, Germany, Japan, America, Italy, Spain. I think Ireland was neutral. I was gonna say Ireland, but history and shit like that, It's the past for a reason. We learn and move on.
Tarnished the reputation of the fighting forces and surely brought about criminal charges. The main reason why so many of these crimes took decades to come to light is that even though in the few instances there were investigations, these were typically dropped or hidden away. This was done so as to not tarnish the reputation of the United States as they attempted to rebuild relations with their former foes. After all, if the international community had concrete and complete investigations of many of these incidents, it probably would have...
There's the one part that I know about America that I know that was a really fucked up thing to do is the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's still recovering from decades ago. It's still recovering. It's fucked up, America.
Hurt the rebuilding process and made Americans look like hypocrites in the midst of high-profile war crime trials in Germany and Japan. But now that there's been almost 80 years for the wounds of World War II to heal,
I do love a lot of people
from Germany and Japan have been taking a more critical eye of the picture-perfect image cast in the history books as Americans being the sinless liberators. Here are 3 examples of cases that often took 40 or more years to come to the public attention. Number 1, the Shinonia Massacre. The Battle of the Bulge was the costliest battle the U.S. Army ever endured, and almost won Hitler a war-altering victory if it were not for the weather, bad luck, and tenacious defense of U.S. troops. During the opening days of the invasion, U.S. troops were taken aback and quickly fell back in the face of the German onslaught. However, after the first few days, U.S. defenses started to stiffen and inflicted incredibly high casualties on the advancing Germans. As a result of high casualties and seeing their last hope for a military victory dashed, German commanders were furious and wanted revenge. As a result, there were multiple massacres of captured American troops during the Battle of the Bulge, but the most famous was the Malmedy.
The thing I know about about hostages, war hostages, I know they use them to like bribe the country to like certain things, but like alternatively, I think that that's pointless because the country would just say, oh, you were trained for this, you were prepared to die, so just die anyways. But I think that they should have just executed them, because if they got free, then they'll cause more trouble. But I have no power to say in that anyways. And you should never take a human life unless it's necessary.
Massacre. The Malmedy Massacre occurred on December 17, 1944, and was the brutal execution of 84 defenseless American prisoners of war in a field. When U.S. troops recaptured the area and found the survivors, word quickly spread, and Americans from Eisenhower on down to the privates were outraged. Though top American officers never issued such orders, lower-ranking officers at the regimental level and below did in fact issue orders that no prisoners would be taken in the counteroffensive, though the official U.S. Army history of the battle recounts that though some units did in fact issue these orders, it was doubtful that they were ever carried out. However,
everything gets covered up eventually, bro. The U.S. government is not going to let something that tarnishes the name, you know, circulate, especially right before trying to repair a
that
relationship.
unit was the 21st Armored Infantry Battalion.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you...
I got so many Eve adverts, it pisses me off now, bro.
Battalion of the 11th Armored Division. As part of their efforts to push the Germans out of Belgium, on New Year's Eve 1944, they, along with another unit, were tasked with clearing the village of Chinonia of Germans. However, the attack did not go so well for them. They were beaten back by stubborn German resistance and ferocious German artillery fire. The unit suffered heavy casualties and was forced to dig in to await further reinforcements at daylight. Early the next morning, on January 1st, 1945, the attack resumed. Through sheer will, the Americans overcame the resistance, and that is when...
If I'm wrong, 1945, I think I'm wrong. I was going to say that's the year.
Though the Americans were certainly looking to kill members of the Waffen-SS, the Germans in the village were all regular army soldiers of a Panzer Grenadier Division. Nevertheless, these were the first Germans they had taken prisoner since the new order, and several men in the unit elected to execute that order. According to men who witnessed the massacre, groups of 25 to 30 Germans were led away into the snow-covered fields and shot without warning. In total, it was estimated that 80 Germans were executed in this fashion. Once their deeds were done, they moved out the next...
Once a man's defenseless,
day on its push toward Germany. Number 2, the Dachau executions. Without a doubt, the scenes that greeted anyone who witnessed a recently liberated concentration camp must have been horrible.
Like Salem,
corpses, walking skeletons, the burning sensation of ash and fumes in the air, combined with the putrid smell of death, would have made even the most hardened soldier turn white. For troops of the battle-hardened 3rd Battalion of the 157th Infantry Regiment of the 45th Infantry Division, the scene was more than enough to break the discipline forged during many months of brutal combat. On the morning of April 29, 1945, the unit was tasked with capturing the infamous Dachau concentration camp. Though not a death camp, it housed at the time approximately 40,000 half-dead prisoners and had been the final resting place of tens of thousands of people for over the past decade. The men expected fanatical resistance from the several hundred SS guards who would rather die than face inevitable punishment for their crimes in the last week of the war. After fighting through some light resistance, the men of the 3rd Battalion reached the camp by the late morning and were greeted with machine gun fire from some of the towers. After these guns were silenced, it seemed though the spirit of the German resistance in the camp was broken, and those not killed in the assault were eager to escape with their lives. However, for some of the guards, they would not do so, even after they surrendered. There are many different versions of the events that took place after the Germans had surrendered, which is probably due to the chaos and limited individual culpability. What is known as the most famous event of the massacre were the events surrounding the infamous coal yard picture. In this picture, a young American machine gunner was photographed shortly after shooting about 16 SS guards while they stood along a wall. Several of their comrades that survived the initial volley can be seen with their arms still raised in surrender. It was this photograph that helped expose the greater portion of the events that unfolded that day. This still unknown soldier is one of many who shot captured SS troopers that day. According to eyewitness testimony, one soldier
one thing I can understand
SS
about this,
when somebody kills
and then like a friend or somebody that's close to you,
finishing shot to the head to make sure they were dead. Another man allegedly shot several Germans as they came out of a guard tower with their hands raised in surrender. Still, what was more shocking were the reprisals brought by the former inmates on their captors under the watchful eye of American soldiers. Seeking their revenge, camp survivors allegedly murdered dozens more SS guards by beating them to death with shovels and stomping them to death. The American troops understandably did not intervene, since they undoubtedly could not even imagine the horrors these survivors had gone through. Once news got out of the massacre, General Patton, who had become military governor of Bavaria, where the camp was located by this point, ordered an investigation. This investigation, which was not released publicly until
Violence breeds
1991
violence.
detailed the flagrant violations of international law at the hands of U.S. troops. However, he decided not to press charges as he did not see this as being helpful to the U.S. cause. Even today, it is safe to say that though the killings themselves were illegal, they got a much better death than what their victims did.
I want to know what makes that illegal and then you murdering a bunch of other troops illegal, because technically I guess they are prisoners of war, but they're all enemies at the end. I'm not saying that you should have killed them.
3. No prisoner policy, April 1945.
He apparently accused them of illegal killing, but did not charge them.
Did the Waffen-SS face indiscriminate
He was trying to make
execution
it seem
in the
like he
final
was
days
doing
of
something,
World
but he was
War II,
doing
but
shit.
so did the regular German army. After U.S. forces crossed the Rhine River in March of 1945, it was common that many units issued their own take-no-prisoner orders, as had been common in the aftermath of the Malmedy massacre in 1944. However, the reason why many of these units issued such orders, or at the very least tolerated this kind of behavior, was due to multiple factors.
Take no
the
prisoners.
first one was the confirmed reports of concentration and death camp survivor testimony. These reports had slowly started to filter into the mainstream media, especially as the Red Army made its advances into Poland and Eastern Germany, where many of these camps were located.
So prisoners, they didn't want to leave them alive because the prisoners would give reenactments of what they experienced during the prison camps. See? They don't want the secrets to be leaked.
Evidence or witnessed the footage.
I understand that,
at
but
the atrocities and vowed to punish those
still, you shouldn't have killed
Another
them.
contributing factor to the take-no-prisoner attitude in March and April of 1945 was the fact that, in the American point of view, the war was over, and those still fighting were the most guilty of war crimes who were seeking to avoid punishment. Therefore, if they encountered any sort of resistance, especially in the face of their inevitable defeat, it was assumed that those resisting must be SS or guilty of some sort of crime,
really
who'd rather
has to
just
be
die in
consistent
battle
of
than face
for it to be
justice.
a
Though many
call to
SS
war
troopers
crime.
and similar guilty parties did just that, there were in fact large numbers of regular German troops in the field who did resist only because of the lies fed to them by their government. It was this tenacious resistance in the waning weeks of World War II in Europe
Never trust
that
the
would be their
government.
downfall.
I'm not one of those
Atrocities committed by
conspiracy
individuals
freaks.
were
Never trust the
commonplace.
government.
Famed
But like,
historian Stephen Ambrose
to be
claimed
honest,
of the
government has a
1,000
lot of shit
veterans he
from you.
interviewed, 1/3 said they saw
I know it's a
executions
drug,
take
but
place.
it's
These
also not the
countless
drug that
murders
had
were
shit from the
embodied
public.
in large-scale shootings in places like Jungholzhausen and Treseberg. During the battle for Jungholzhausen on April 15,
Damn, that's a name.
1945,
Jungholzhausen. I'm gonna name my kid.
Enlisted is the free brand new online World War II shooter.
That's a long name.
Command a squad of soldiers and participate.
And I have like 6 names in total from
men of the
first to last, but,
254th
like,
Infantry
that's a long
Regiment
name.
suffered heavy casualties. Though this was a combined action by the regular German army and the Waffen-SS, the army soldiers were eager to surrender, as reported by the local townspeople. However, it seems as though because of heavy
I'm guessing that
casualties
they were like
inflicted
a
by the
secret
SS, the
service for the
surrendering
German
soldiers were treated just
army.
the same. In one of the most notable instances of the massacre, 13 German soldiers who had dug a trench behind a barn surrendered as soon as they saw the Americans. However, when the farmer's son went to check on them
but
the
they still
morning
got
after the
gunned.
battle, he found all 13 men were killed with a shot to the back of their neck while on their knees. Yet another villager witnessed an
How you
American
gonna shoot
soldier
somebody
gun
in the
down
back,
4
bro?
captured SS men when he told them to run away from him. Several other witnesses came forward that they were ordered to dig a mass grave for victims, which numbered around 30. In the town of Treseberg on April 19,
The witness?
1945, a similar yet
I know
sadder
that they're
story
enemies, but
unfolded.
why you shoot
Members
somebody
of
in
the
the back, bro?
18th Infantry Regiment of the
It's a
1st
pussy
Infantry
move.
Division
Pussy
took
boy.
very heavy casualties in the battle to take Treseberg, with around 60 Americans confirmed being killed, including a battalion commander who the Americans claimed was shot by a sniper wearing civilian clothes. As a result, the Americans were incensed and wanted to take revenge. They found their opportunity when they stumbled upon
I
a group of
understand that.
10 Hitler youth sent to the area. According to local historians, these young boys, all around the age of 14, had just graduated infantry training at a nearby camp and were ordered to the front line. As they were making their way forward, they were surprised and captured by the Americans on the road.
Bro, don't come and take your retribution on the children, bro. They've just been roped into this shit without even knowing what's happened. I remember people used to say that they used to go and take kids from the houses from their parents and start training them from the young ages.
One of the boys
they're
managed to
innocent.
run
Don't
away
come
and
take
hid,
a
thus
revenge
providing
on them.
testimony for the villagers to reclaim the bodies of the boys after the American troops shot them. Soon after, the villagers had the boys buried with several German soldiers killed in action, and in 1951 had them exhumed to prove their murder, with the medical examiner confirming each boy had been shot in the back of the neck. These 3 crimes are just a highlight of the violations of international law committed by the U.S. forces during World War II. Unfortunately, the U.S. military was not very interested in investigating and much less prosecuting war crimes either during or after the war. In fact, most of the records and testimony actually come from sources outside
war
the
criminals
U.S.,
were
like the German Army War Crimes
heroes.
Bureau, that investigated reports of crimes against Germans by the Allies. Unfortunately, there are undoubtedly untold stories of more crimes committed by U.S. forces that may never see the light of day, but hopefully further scholarship in this area will set the record straight that not all Americans who served in World War II did so with honor.
That's true. Not all, what's it called? Not all soldiers serve with honor. Some of them are just there because they like killing and they want to do it legally. Serial killers. I'm just kidding. Anyways, it's been your boy Audisei, man. YouTube, why? What did I do to you? But you know, I'm back anyway, so I'm gonna just leave it alone, you know. I don't wanna ruffle no feathers. But you know, it's been your boy Audisei. As you can see, in that time I've been changing my setup. It's gradually changing. And when I'm done with everything, I'll show you the entire setup of the room. Okay? Friends, bro. Peace out.